So welcome everyone. I'm Vince Miliazzo with the Downtowners, and we're welcome to our first virtual meeting. I hope everyone's connected and got on board. The mayor has to leave the meeting at about 12:35, so we're gonna introduce our sponsors, Peric and the library Kim, at the end of the meeting. And right now I'm going to introduce Tom Esselman, who's with the Connections for Good. And that was the charity that you had the opportunity to donate to when you registered. And Tom's going to say a few words, and then he'll be on at the end of the presentation as well.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Yes, Connecting for Good, we're very grateful for the support you all are providing. We're a nonprofit. We've been around for the last 8 years, and we provide affordable internet and computers and digital skills training to low-income communities throughout the city. So right now, there's a huge demand, as you can imagine, for all the families that have school kids at home, but no devices. And that also includes a lot of older adult residents who are forced to rely on technology to stay connected. So anything we can get in terms of computer donations, we're able to safely wipe them clean, refurbish them, and get them repurposed back out into the community. We're very, very grateful for your support.
Okay, thanks, Tom. We'll hope talk to you at the end of the meeting as well. And,
great, thanks.
Now we'd like to go to Mayor Quinton Lucas, our speaker today. Thanks for joining us, Mayor. If anybody has questions, use the chat button on the bottom of your screen, and that'll go to the mayor's office.
Hey, Vince, it might take him just a minute. He's getting the login and everything. So people want to add some chat questions while we wait for him. That'd be great.
Okay.
How do we get in contact with the computer guy during this coronavirus?
And as we're waiting for the mayor, don't forget you can also connect through Twitter and Facebook. Stan from Terracon on our board is manning those applications right now. So if you have any questions or want to connect with Stan, he's there. I guess we'll try. The mayor is now online, and we're happy to have Mayor Quinton Lucas as our speaker for our April luncheon, and our first virtual luncheon. Hopefully it'll be our only virtual luncheon, but we're happy to have Mayor Lucas. And go ahead.
Okay, now you have me. All right. Hi, everybody. It is great to be with you, and it's an honor to visit with the group in a different way than we're sometimes used to. A few things I wanted to note. First, it has been a whirlwind as mayor of Kansas City. As you all probably remember, I became mayor on August 1st of this year. Since that time, a lot has happened. We saw a Chiefs Super Bowl, a victory parade, any number of challenges, and then a global pandemic. So I guess 9 months in, they keep bringing things to me pretty strongly. But I wanted to talk about our response right now, not only in terms of what COVID-19 has meant to our city and our region, but also what it means to downtown, as all of you are people that care a lot about downtown, our businesses, our resurgence, and how we can make sure that maintains. First of all, when you look at COVID-19, some of the initial orders we have to take dating back to March the 12th have been ones that have a strong, in some ways disproportionate impact on a lot of the industries of Kansas City's central core. I mean by that our lodging industry, certainly events, conventions, etc. And so we have had a difficult time, frankly, trying to make sure that while we are doing what we can for public safety, we are also making sure that we are trying to sustain our economy, sustain jobs, understand that there are a lot of restaurants, bars, so many others that were expecting, frankly, a boom throughout the spring months. March is Big 12 tournament, March Madness, that sort of thing, and not being able to have that. And so that's something that those of us at City Hall who work in economic development are spending a lot of time thinking about and talking about. One of the reasons that throughout this crisis we've pretty much stayed steadfast on public health will always be our foundation is because I see my job as making sure that people can survive. When the Big 12 tournament was called off, I remember we then issued an emergency order in Kansas City that canceled all events over 1,000 people. And in the early days, I had people that called me and said, oh my gosh, that means Comic-Con, that means the NAIA tournament, that means performances of the music hall. But the biggest challenge we had wasn't those, shutting down those events. It was when we issued an order that banned events of 10 persons or more. And then the wedding industry got to me. And angry brides from throughout Middle America said all of a sudden, you were the worst person ever, canceling my weddings, doing all those sorts of things. And what I took from that wasn't so much that folks were being rude or anything of that sort. I think we needed to understand and explain why it is we were doing what we were doing. And I think what we have seen over recent weeks is that we've done a better job of informing the public of the real risks that relate to COVID-19. If you look at the tragedies that are in New York City right now, certainly New Orleans, Detroit, Chicago has more infections now. You continue to see the reasons why I think local governments have taken action. And I'm proud of the fact that not only Kansas City, Missouri, but all of our counties surrounding Johnson, Wyandotte, Jackson, Clay, Platte, have taken important steps to make sure that we're flattening the curve. When we started a few weeks ago in measuring when our spike in number of infections would occur, Missouri was listed as about May 18th. What we have seen since that time is a significant reduction. The latest numbers I'm seeing have Missouri finally aligned with Kansas at about April the 19th. I think that is a clear reflection of some of the key steps that we've taken, but we have more to do. Some of that continues to be based on us enhancing our testing capabilities. And I was on the phone with CEOs from Truman Medical Center and other area hospitals in our region and how we can enhance and accelerate testing, not just for those who are covered by insurance, but for all people, even if they don't have a relationship with a primary care physician. We have to make sure that we're addressing issues with our homeless population, particularly downtown. I've heard some concerns and complaints from business owners talking about the fact that when we closed the libraries, when we closed a number of other entities, right, there were folks that were out on the streets more doing any number of things. We've established more porta potties. We continue to establish more counseling. And as you may have seen, Kansas City, Missouri bought a block of rooms at an area motel to make sure that we have housing for those who were confronting coronavirus during this time. And so there is a lot left for us to do. I think we all are spending time trying to make sure that we not only are addressing the public health issues, but doing what we can to rebuild business. I think a stimulus, particularly as it relates to downtown, is going to be key at the end of this crisis. We have made, and I say this as someone who grew up in Kansas City, perhaps like some of you, we have made such tremendous strides comparing Kansas City from downtown from 1995, let's say, to today. 25 years of difference, we see so much. And in some ways, it's heartbreaking for those of you who may either drive through downtown, live here, or just seen pictures. I still come into City Hall. And we see that in a number of situations, the streets are just as empty as they had been before. I think it's important for us to make sure that as we look to rebuild, we think about the impacts that we've had on our lodging industry, our restaurant industry, and we also make sure that we address those issues that small businesses have had. That's why I'm proud that my administration was able to secure $500,000 in small business loans. That's going to be important for us long term. A few other points, and then I'll break for questions, because I do enjoy hearing from all of you, and that's where we can be most creative. We need to make sure that we're taking care of not only our frontline workers, EMTs, firefighters, police officers, grocery workers, our essential employees that continue to show up every day at City Hall, including the water department and public works. We also need to make sure that we have a plan for how do we come out of the crisis. It's not enough just to say, all right, we're past the spike, everybody wants to go outside, and that's about it. What we have to also do is come up with a plan both for business and public health to make sure that we can address this, particularly if there's a recurrence of infections coming in the fall, which some have discussed previously. And so my job has been busy, but Kansas City, I think, has been very kind. This is a good place to be mayor, even if you don't get to see many of your constituents often. We've had wonderful regional collaboration, both with my other mayors and the Mid-America Regional Council. And then I look forward to making sure that we have more opportunities ahead to come out of this working together so that everybody's working for the best of downtown and for all of Kansas City. With that, I'll suspend, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I see I have questions in the chat, and but I'm happy to address them in any way. Thank you all for being here and caring about Kansas City. And should I just answer the questions that are in the chat box? All right, I'll do it that way. Great to see you. All right, I'll go with the tough ones first. All right. My son is an Army trained nurse. Please, Mayor Lucas, provide testing for all frontline healthcare workers. I think that's an important point to note. So we have to worry not only about those that are paid for by the city of Kansas City, police officers, firefighters, EMTs, but also making sure that there's enough gear getting to our hospital workers, which is importantly not just physicians, it's not just nurses. There are a number of other folks that are working with sick patients that are exposed at a number of our primary care facilities in Kansas City, a lot of our clinics in Kansas City. A priority of mine has been making sure that we actually are getting more gear, more protective equipment for those folks, and that it isn't just being limited to a smaller number. We are not getting enough yet. I think that's something that, along with testing, that it needs to be imperative, not just from the local government side, but from the state and federal authorities. And that's something that we will continue to work on, not forgetting all of our other workers. Another question. I'm curious why the streetcars are still running. They've been empty for 2 weeks. Are they truly essential for getting people to work, healthcare, and groceries? I don't believe so. I run in the mornings because I'm trying to get something positive out of this moment. And I tend to run down Main Street. I live at 18th and Vine and then come on over. Run down Main. And yes, I see the streetcar running back and forth without anyone on it. I'd like to change that. And frankly, I plan to have a conversation fairly soon with the director of the Streetcar Authority. He may be on this call, but about what are we providing? Because I think to the extent we don't need it, we don't need to have people in harm's way each day. Next question. How do you anticipate those who are reliant on regular government assistance being impacted if relief money from the stimulus package will put them over the line for qualification of Medicaid, SNAP, and other important benefits? You know, I can't say that I have thought about that issue yet. I know that from the local government side, we will continue to give the same consistent level of support, which usually actually is rarely qualifications based, unless we're actually doing home repairs for you or something of that sort. I think most other clinics and shelters will likely be providing those types of services without a number of questions. That said, I do think that receipt of SNAP, Medicaid, and other benefits will be important for people to evaluate. I would just suggest that perhaps my office isn't the one that knows the most about that at this point. What, in your opinion, can the average citizen do to help the city through this time? Oh my God, there's lots you can do, average citizen, although none of you on here are average, by the way. A few things. One, stay home, which looks like many of you are doing. Two, you all know every year in Kansas City, there are a lot of charitable events, like at the Marriott and all these other places. Well, a lot of those places don't have enough money to get by right now. A lot of them are saying every year our Operation Breakthrough big gala is in April, and so therefore we don't have it. If you have the opportunity, make a contribution to that nonprofit that you typically support. Make that type of promise to them, just because they're right now in a position where a lot of them are also asking the government for some level of support, and we ain't got it. And so I think that's probably one of the biggest and most impactful things we can do. Two other groups that I think you can help out a lot: young people, older people. The first of which is with our older folks. A lot of people are shut in right now. Call them if you have their number. If you are one of those people who walks down the streets and waves at people, then I would encourage you to continue to do that. I think that's going to be vital for us. The other thing for our young people, all of us have lessons to share. I recorded some videos for school kids this week. I don't know if they'll like them or not. They're going to high schoolers, and that's always iffy because teenagers, nothing is cool to them. But if you have something to add, if you have something to share, whether you're a parent or just somebody who cares, I'm not a parent myself. I think that would be something that's neat. So reach out to schools or other organizations in your communities with whatever you can provide on teaching and expertise. One thing I've actually liked a lot, Channel 9, the meteorologists are providing these interesting weather lessons. And it's Brian Busby teaches you about cumulus clouds or something. And I found that to be interesting. And I think that's the sort of work we can do. Will KCMO construction projects stay on hold, or will there be a continuation of bids on projects? We, at this point, are continuing to work on projects. Public works projects, commercial construction, residential continue as before, and we will plan for that to continue to be the case until events change. Next question. We need PPE for our direct support professionals providing 24/7 care to individuals with developmental disabilities. We're with Behavioral Health Kansas City. I think that's actually a very good point. As we get more PPE, one of my goals has been to make sure we're actually passing it out too. So it's not enough for the city to say, all right, we've got enough for us. I do want the city to be a provider for more PPE for others. And we are working to procure that every step of the way. We have to start with our employees. We're making sure they have enough. I think as of today, I'm hearing reports that we have. And then our next step is to make sure we're taking care of all of our, everyone in our community. What happens to folks, next question, what happens for folks, and you guys have some beautiful names, by the way, Julianne. So what happens for folks returning to work if Kansas still has a stay at home, but Missouri lifts its order? We have, at least in the metro, worked together in terms of what our orders will be, and I will plan for us to continue to do that. So I think for our metropolitan counties, we don't have the same issue. I do have grave concerns that Missouri, for example, was the most recent example for the many weeks that the governor would not issue an order. I think that was problematic. I think it continues to be problematic because this is the sort of thing where we're trying to fight long-term community spread. And so I think the way that we really try to deal with that is to try to make sure that there is not inconsistency for our bi-state region in connection with that order. That's going to require me to call the director of the Secretary of Health in the state of Kansas, Dr. Lee Norman, who used to be a River Market resident in Kansas City, Missouri. And I think we'll try to make sure we're collaborating on that sort of work. Next question. How are you working with K-12 area superintendents to work out the details regarding school startups, spring or fall semesters? I have already had one call with superintendents on the Missouri side where we made the decision to close schools for at least through what is now April 24th. I have another call scheduled with them this Friday. Given the fact that the state of Missouri really wasn't acting before, I took under my authority at least every school district with a building in Kansas City, Missouri, which turns out to be 14 school districts, way too many. And so what that meant was that we have the ability to functionally close schools in Western Missouri. And we will continue to work together as a coalition, mainly superintendents in Jackson, Clay, Platte, and Cass counties before we take any further steps. But I would expect there will be several more weeks added on to our order. I recognize that in Kansas, Governor Kelly closed schools for the year. At this point, I'm not as inclined to make that declaration, not necessarily because I think that the schools will open up any sooner, but I've talked to some superintendents who want to actually transition to almost a mandatory summer school type of experience where students can actually finish the current grade in July or heaven forbid August. And so knowing that that's a possibility, we would probably look to extensions of our current state of emergency, but not necessarily closing schools for the year because maybe they stay open, they just don't open up again for another month and a half. Does the governor's stay-at-home order preempt or supersede the city's order? No, which is good because our order actually has teeth. If you're wondering some of the differences, I do have qualms with, I'm sorry, I spoke too honestly. Don't share. Okay, anyway, look, I'm glad the governor made an order. It needed to do more. There is no reason, for example, that people should be filling up church pews this Sunday. I say this as a guy who actually, look, I'm a Baptist, so y'all know I get kind of kooky, but nevertheless, yeah, we shouldn't go. You shouldn't go in a group where there'll be lots of people or anything of that sort. And so I disagree with the exemption that was made at the state level for religious institutions. I think that can create more community spread. We heard about a tragic conference in Kansas City, Kansas. That was a religious conference. 3 people came down. There was more community spread. And so I really think that we need to have orders that are getting people to stay home by closing non-essential businesses. And again, remember, essential doesn't mean valuable. For example, I'm a lawyer. My law firm is closed. It doesn't mean that we're useless. Indeed, we think we're very useful. We're lawyers after all. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we're protecting people along the way. All right, the state order seems vague on traveling for work purposes. Yeah, the state order is. And so I would still say stick with your stay-at-home viewpoints and you'll be in a good place, particularly if you're in Kansas City. The porta potties are huge. Thank you. It was important that we worked with the downtown CID and the area transportation authority. That was big for us. What is the status with the airport now and next? I know. Ay, Dios mío. So the airport, right? We go through all these years of drama trying to get it passed. And then we get it passed and we start construction on the airport. Construction continues on the airport because there's a public works construction exemption from our order. But where is the devil in the details on KCI? Well, a lot of people are talking about money right now. All of our businesses may be impacted. We may individually be impacted by loss of wages or anything of that sort over the current month. For all of you who are wondering, a little secret of how we actually usually fund airport operations, including billion-dollar bonds that we take out for them, is through fees related to parking. We receive roughly, and this was in 2015 numbers, about $65 million a year in parking revenues from the Kansas City International Airport, because for all of us who've flown out and we've had to park there, you notice you can't park down the street. And so there will be significant losses this year as it relates to the airport itself. And we'll need to see what impact that has on the bond, I guess, on our payment obligations, or what it means to us long-term on the project. I think construction-wise, we're fine. I think financing issues will probably be more interesting as we talk about KCI Airport. You mentioned that the peak is now within your original stay-at-home order. That being the case, do you envision going back to small groups, businesses opening, social distancing at that time? Unlikely. I think we probably, even after the peak, would still need some time of evaluation to see how we can make sure that there's not a large amount of reinfection, right? No one wants us to open up schools and baseball and all that sort of stuff. And then 2 weeks later, we say we have thousands more cases because we took our foot off the gas. We're going to try to make sure that we're in a good position. So I would look for at least a 2-week extension of the current order at issue. The order currently expires on April 24th. That would get us to May 10th-ish, okay? All right. So proud of our community. I am too. I like that. Okay, so what can we do really to help frontline workers? Meals, finances. Is there anything set up for us to do so online? Yeah, money is easiest. Your problem with meals is we don't want you necessarily to go out and about and start passing out all these meals. And so I think that is kind of our most important issue now. If you have treasure that you're willing to spare, if you have that sort of thing, then I think that's what we're really looking for. What factors will you look at when deciding to lift the stay-at-home order? Good question. So there are 3 factors when we think about lifting the stay-at-home order. One is, by the way, can I digress briefly to add some levity to the moment? I've loved that all of us are doing more of these Zoom meetings and that sort of thing. And in all of my meetings, there's always one person that I end up seeing the entire time. And that is you, Kim Guile, who's like my big picture. And, you know, it's just kind of like, yeah, she's not even saying anything, but, you know, so I'm measuring every reaction from her. Thank you so far. She usually smiles and responds. I gave her a red face though. So I'll go back to my pictures. So what factors will you look at when deciding to lift the stay-at-home order? 3. First, situations where we don't have additional community spread. What do I mean by that? Right now, lots of the new infections are coming from people who don't know where they're coming from. That's the random community nature that we don't like to see. We want to get to a point where we won't necessarily stop spread, but we will know where it's coming from. That's where you get from epidemic to something that is treatable. I'll give an example from science and medicine of the past. In the early AIDS crisis, if you remember, part of the concern was that there were lots of people, particularly males, but who were dying and we didn't know where from. We couldn't trace it to any activities, any groups. That's what gives you that epidemic that is of grave concern. Usually where public health is able to say, all right, we have some control or containment, is where we know where spread is coming from. We know groups we're able to trace. We are nowhere near that point yet. And until we are actually at that tracing point where we can see, husband lives with wife, right? And that's where the transmission came from, not just person was driving around and went to work and we don't know where it's from. That's where we're trying to get to throughout the country in our understanding. Basically, better tracing gives you that answer. Other areas of the other 2 points of when we know we can let up is one, being sure that the hospitals have sufficient capacity for even our peak status of those that are in any type of medical trouble. And so that capacity issue is vital for us. We don't want to get into a point that we've seen in some other places where, particularly Italy, where they're making choices that seem just awful and incredibly taxing on us. And then the third point is very simply, does our public health apparatus support it? And what I mean by that is, do we have better treatment regimens? I pray every day that we have some sort of vaccine or cure of some sort. We're not there yet. And while the stay-at-home order termination may not wait till that point, we want to see where public health is as we get closer there. Next question. While the streets are relatively empty, are there various public works and infrastructure projects that can be done to keep people working and get things done with less aggravation to the downtown population when we all return? Sure, yeah. We continue to do our projects. Probably the only reason that isn't happening is because we never actually stopped public works projects and what they were doing. And so they're probably still doing some of the same projects from before. But I will take that point because particularly downtown, as compared to our residential neighborhoods, is fairly empty. And that gives us an opportunity to get some good work done. Next question. Are you in regular conversations with mayors from hard-hit areas on the coast to learn what has or has not worked in their cities? I have a 2 o'clock call with a convening of mayors called Accelerate for America. The kind of convener of that group is Eric Garcetti, the mayor of Los Angeles. I don't know if we'll get anybody from the New York area because they've just been so swamped. But yeah, we do have regular conversations. Our director of public health is a member of a group of big city health directors of the 29 largest cities in America. That necessarily gets us a number of East Coast cities. And so we do continue to have conversations about what we can do better. Next question. Much of the news these days is focused on ventilators or lack thereof. How prepared is our region with that essential resource? Is there bi-state collaboration? Yes, there is bi-state collaboration. I guess the other point in connection with that, do we have enough? We currently right now are predicting that we do have enough ventilators. This is why our stay-at-home order is important. We are not projecting to get to a point where our hospital capacity or needs exceed capacity. And so that's where we're good. Of course, things can change. And in the event that they do, then everything's kind of out of whack. But yes, we regularly talk to our colleagues throughout the region. Federal funds for cities 500,000 population and above were to receive that money, and KC was 18,000 short of that number. Will the city still get federal relief money? So under our last estimate, the city believes we have 505,000 Kansas Cityans. Yay, right? We do plan to push with the Secretary of the Treasury and with the help of our congressional delegation, our effort to make sure that we do get recognized in that regard. When the pandemic is over, how can we recognize the sacrifices made by the heroes on the front lines? Firefighters, police, medical professionals, grocery store employees, very good point. Delivery truck drivers, letter carriers, bus drivers, airport personnel. We'll make sure we recognize them. One of the reasons, and there was some controversy, people asked, why did you pass a Kansas City, Missouri budget this year? One of the reasons I thought it was vital we do that and not just avoid doing so and let the pandemic take over everything was because a lot of those people who are paid the least, who pick up our trash, who work at water services, who clean our parks, don't get paid much, and they had a forecast 2% pay increase this year. And I wanted to make sure they got it, frankly. I mean, if you're making $35,000 a year working your tail off and you're still showing up right now at work every day, as they all are, that to me means that we should care about your sacrifice. And so that's one way. Thank you, Kim. That's one way that, you know, I look to do it. So I thought that was important. Next question. Oh, every now and then I move too fast, and I will try to go a little faster for you. Do you feel Missouri, I don't call it Missouri actually, but do you feel Missouri residents are cooperating with the stay-at-home order more so now that the governor has issued a statewide order? You know, in Kansas City, we've been under one for a little while, so I'm not sure. And I have not actually been anywhere else in Missouri other than Kansas City. So I can't really speak to that. I hope they are. I think it's important that they do. And, you know, I'm content with what the public's been doing. Trust me, I know that there's still some people who are going to misbehave. And you get that every day in a city of this size. But by and large, I've been very proud of Kansas City. I mean, the aforementioned downtown streets are fairly empty. I think you're even seeing better social distancing in the parks. More people are getting it. And so I think that is important for us. A cleanup KC sure would be productive, says someone. Everyone grab a large trash bag and safely clean up your local trail, a section of highway, or traffic way, neighborhood by neighborhood, within distancing guidelines, of course. How about area drop-off sites for the trash and heavy pickup additions? You have a great mechanism to promote this. I bet everyone on this call would be helpful. Oh, really? Okay, well, hey everybody, let's pick up some trash in our neighborhoods because I know you got the time. And so, I mean, my view is this, right? Do what you can, however that appears. And for some of us, it's going out. For some of us, we may be concerned about even going outside, and that's fine too. Heck, right now I'm trying to convince my mother, God love her, to go to the grocery store less. I'm like, we made it essential, not so you can make meatloaf tonight, but so, right, you just get the food you need and not go every day. That's not what this is about. And so there is this balance, right? We do want to reduce our number of trips. We do want to reduce some of our exposure, but nevertheless, if there are things you can do that maintain social distancing that aren't having close interaction, then I'd say go ahead and do it. Can you go into a longer term plan on KC's small business stimulus package? You know, right now, I think we do largely have a short-term plan on it. I mean, that is the $500,000 for small business emergency relief. The businesses that are eligible for such funds have to have 20 or fewer employees, have revenues in the last year of $750,000 or less. That's an or, by the way, and need to really be subject to it. What we're trying to do from this loan program is to keep some businesses alive. We recognize that there are many that will be challenged and there are many that may not come back. And so that's the effort that we're taking now, and that's really what the program's about. We'll certainly be sure to visit more with you about kind of our long-term ideas. What are your thoughts about the disparity of infections in our brown and black communities? I have significant concerns with it. You know, I started thinking about this maybe a week ago. It's odd to believe how much has happened in a very short amount of time. And I was reading about some of the early deaths out of New York City. A 36-year-old black school principal, a 31-year-old African-American woman in the city of St. Louis. You know, I think that all of those things that typically lead to a lower life expectancy in certain parts of our community and certain communities of our region are pronounced in this situation. And so I think that speaks to a few things. One, we need a better message to make sure we're reaching all communities. I mean, and that's something that we just need to do the work on. We also need to make sure that we're investing in enough public health infrastructure to make sure that people in communities that are poor, communities of color, communities of new American arrivals, our immigrant population, et cetera, know that we're trying to stop community spread there. So I think that's important for us. You guys are just so impressive. I've got 26 more questions. When do I go till I run out? All right. Well, I'll just go, and then Tim, you just wave at me and say when to stop, or Kim can too. All right. So, question. Not sure if this question is for you. Would it be feasible to suggest grocery stores establish one-way directions up and down the lanes to help maintain social distancing in the store aisles? That's a great idea. I guess I could kind of tell them to do that, but no, I like that idea. I'll try to make that work. Okay. how are you holding up through this pandemic? Oh, that's very nice. I'm fine. Thank God I haven't had to get my hair done in a few years, but I'm doing okay. I mean, it's a challenging time because some of the business of government goes on. You still have, unions that might be mad at us. You still believe, there are all these other things, but you're also balancing a real public health crisis. Um, it's something I never want to go through again. I imagine none of us want to go through this again. I just hope that, our community stays safe. I'm watching more news than I probably would like. And so I watched like the NBC Nightly News last night. And when you see, I mean, how many people died in New York City, just New York City alone yesterday? I mean, it's just awful. And so I can't wait till we're out of harm's way with that. It, plays on your psyche and puts a lot of pressure on. But, I think right now, Kansas City hopefully is doing all right. And I hope we can continue to make sure that we don't have just unconscionable numbers long term. How can we help work to retrain our workforce who recently lost jobs due to this pandemic? Any thoughts on how we can take this time to reskill and upskill with virtual training? Gosh, I think I was actually visiting with the chancellor of the Metropolitan Community Colleges the other day on training and how difficult it is. I think there are ways we can work with them. Right now, everything has happened so recently that a lot of that's going to be probably a next semester after sort of thing, where we really do have to make sure that no matter your business, you're prepared to go online, you're prepared to go virtual. I think it's fair to say we weren't ready. I don't think the schools were ready to the extent necessary. And I think that's a lesson that we've all learned long term. There's a question on streetcar extension. This week, a vote is required by the city's transportation committee. Actually, probably already happened. Ooh, breaking news. I know there's a lot going on right now, but the project's been in motion. What's your stance on large projects? I like them, that are not our primary focus now, but could have a great impact on our community later on. Well, look, I think that we've made a number of promises in connection with what we're doing in Kansas City. I think two of those promises that we've made relate to streetcar extension, relate to a replacement of the Buck O'Neill Bridge. I think both of those are projects that, although very expensive, are going to be vital for the future of our city, and so I plan to stand in support. Are you the first mayor to have a direct Zoom meeting with voters? This is going very well. What do you think? I do like this meeting. Actually, I think I like Zoom a lot more than I like Facebook. No offense to Facebook, but folks say some crazy stuff on there. And so I kind of like that everybody, for the most part here, is being kind of nice and pleasant. But I think this is a good way to do a town hall. Mayor Q, to line it up with our shorter season this year, hopefully, how do you think our Royals are going to be when we start the season? And also discuss what conversations you've had with our professional sports teams around this epidemic. Well, I'll tell you this, everybody. The Royals did not do well last year. Gotcha. The Royals really didn't do great last year. But what I would give for 100 lost baseball right now, I would love that. So, I don't know. I just hope we get to play. I know it's going to be important to make sure we're in a public health position instead. For the real baseball prognosticators, I think the answer has been that we need to, we weren't going to look great this year. I mean that with respect to Dayton Moore and Mike Matheny and everybody on the team, but I think, we've got more to do. And so I'm going to just take maybe two more questions because I have a meeting with the aforementioned firefighters union. Wish me luck. Okay, so how is the search for a new city manager progressing? Do you worry that the city will continue to lose key managers during the interim? I'll tell you, Tony and others, this is actually a fairly tough time to hire someone. You really, and so we started a search at pretty much the toughest time. Most other folks that would be qualified to be a city manager anywhere else in the country, either current city managers or important department directors, are busy right now, as they should be. And I wouldn't want somebody who's just during the pandemic hanging out and not useful. And so that might mean that we're a little slower on our search. But that's the sort of work that I think we need to make sure we get done because it's vital for the city. In terms of losing other directors and managers, I think there were already a number of directors that were planning to retire to move on. I think we're seeing a lot of that now, and I think the long term, I think in the short term will be all right. We have a lot of very competent managers at the mid level, and but we will work to make sure that we can get a new manager in place. I would hope sooner rather than later, but with a qualifier that this moment is a challenge for us. So with that, I was told I have to leave. I really enjoyed visiting with you all. I hope all of your future virtual meetings continue to go so very well. And I agree with Nelsie. Thank you to Sherry and Tim and everybody in the Downtowners for taking part. If you have any questions, call me anytime. I give my cell phone out to everybody in the city, which is a crazy idea. And we'll talk again soon. Bye-bye now.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Lucas. That was great. We actually were fortunate, got 10 more minutes out of him. He was supposed to leave at 12:35. We got to 12:45. And I want to thank, again, Parrot Construction, and going to introduce Sherry Balmer from Parrot here. And I have to tell a quick story. You know, when we, the Downtowners had a board meeting, we decided to try a virtual meeting with the mayor. And then Rick Usher from the city, who sits on our board, sent an email to the mayor's office to find out if that would work out. And at the same time that he sent that email, Sherry sent me an email saying, "Hey, why don't we do a Zoom meeting?" So it was good karma for there. And here's Sherry to tell more about Parrot.
Thank you so much, Vince. Just for many of you, very quickly, Parrot is a general contractor in Kansas City. We are very excited to be part of this community. We just want to take a few moments to thank the mayor, thank Vince, Kim, everybody with the KC Downtowners. And during this time, this has been great. We are all in this together, and please continue to stay home. And we look forward to being your committed partner and trusted resource, and look forward to speaking with all of you very soon.
Okay, thanks, Sherry. And you know, obviously our regular meetings have been down at the Kansas City Library, and we have Kim Guile from the library to tell us a couple programs that the library has during this time. So Kim, go ahead.
Okay, I just shared my screen with you all. Hopefully you can see it. And I wanted to just highlight two really quick things that have helped me personally pass some of the time and just stay a little bit more sane during everything that we're going through right now. And so there's two things to highlight really quickly on this. One is, if you're on our website, kclibrary.org, you can click on streaming here, and we have this streaming service called Canopy. And there are so many films, there are informational sessions, it's really, really fantastic content that's in this, and you can stream it through your Roku, you can use it as an app on your phone, you can stream it through your computer like you normally would. It's just a fantastic resource that's available. And the other thing is, as you are not able to check out any regular books from the library, we still have access to ebooks. We have Tumble books for kids, which are interactive kids books. Those are really fun. We have online story times that we're doing through Facebook Live every single day if you want an interactive story time with your kiddo. And Overdrive has an app called Libby that is a fantastic app, and you can do all of your ebooks and e-audiobooks through that app as well. And so I just wanted to remind everyone, as you're trying to maintain some sense of normalcy, that the library is still here and ready to support you. And if you have any questions, feel free and email me or get in touch with me directly. I'm happy to help. It's Kim Guile at kclibrary.org. And that's all I have. Thank you, Vince.
You bet. Thanks for all your help, Kim. And we're gonna let Tom Esselman from the Connections for Good say a few more words about that charity. And Tom, go ahead. Tim, could you unmute Tom?
Okay. Thanks so much, Vince. Just for those of you who may not have been on at the start, Connecting for Good is a nonprofit that's focused on the 5,000 to 10,000 families in our city right now that are at home, but they lack access to technology tools to help them get and stay connected for vital schoolwork and work. So we are very grateful that we've been designated as the recipient of any donations made by the Downtowners Group as part of today's lunch meeting. And we are continuing to reach out to the community for computer donations as well as financial contributions that are keeping us in business, albeit with a lot of safety precautions for our staff and all of the clients that we work with. But I just wanted to say thank you so much. I don't know if Kim could put our information slide back up on the screen, but if you do have any either needs that you want to make us aware of or any resources to contribute, the best and safest way to do that is if you can look at the screen. Thank you so much, Kim, for putting that up. Call our main phone number or email us at info@connectingforgood.org. And once again, thank you all so much for being part of this group and for looking out for the needs of all those who are at home but lack access to vital technology tools.
Okay, thanks, Tom. It's a great organization that you lead. And that's it for today. I want to talk about next month. We have Kathy Nelson from the Kansas City Sports Commission as our speaker, and Academy Bank is our sponsor. I'm not sure if we're going to have that at the library, but I know that Kathy Nelson is an experienced Zoom meeting person, so I think that we may be doing this again. Look for an email from us on that. And I want to just again thank everyone for helping today. Kim did a great job, and look forward to seeing everyone next week or next month. Thanks.
Thank you.